The ancient device hummed with energy that hadn't flowed through its circuits in over 1,000 years. Elder Velthus watched the quantum beacon come to life, its pale blue light casting strange shadows across the damaged control room. The walls still bore scorch marks from the last Cravathi attack. 3 days ago they had lost the eastern habitat dome. 2,000 Velrin died when the shields failed. Velthus's body flickered with patterns of deep sorrow, colors shifting across their translucent skin in ways that would make any Velrin weep. They were the last of the High Council. The others had fallen defending the evacuation ships, or died when Thessera Prime was consumed. Now only this small colony remained, and the swarm was coming back to finish what they started. The beacon was their final hope. Ancient texts spoke of the Protectorate, legendary beings who traveled the stars to defend peaceful species from extinction. For 3 generations, the Velrin had suffered under Cravathi attacks. 17 civilizations had fallen to the swarm. The Velrin would be the 18th unless help arrived. Velthus pressed their webbed hand against the activation panel. The beacon sent its signal outward faster than light, carrying a simple message across the void. "Help us, please, we are dying." Hours passed, then days. The Velrin huddled in their remaining stations, watching sensors for any sign of response. Children pressed against viewing ports, their patterns dim with hunger and fear. The adults tried to remain calm, but their bioluminescence betrayed them. Every Velrin could see the terror written on their neighbors' bodies. On the 5th day, something answered. The space near their planet rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Reality twisted, bent, and tore open. Ships emerged from the wound in space, massive and dark and wrong. They were not elegant like Velrin vessels. They were not beautiful like the ships in stories about the Protectorate. These ships looked like weapons, covered in armor plates and bristling with things that could only be guns. 73 warships arranged themselves in formation with military precision. The largest was over 2 kilometers long, its hull scarred from previous battles. Point defense turrets tracked across the empty space, searching for threats. Missile batteries sat ready to fire. Every surface seemed designed to hurt, to break, to kill. The Velrin control room erupted in panic. Bioluminescent patterns flashed red and orange, the colors of pure fear. Velthus felt their own body respond, patterns shifting beyond their control. They accessed the galactic database with shaking hands and found the identification markers on the ships. Human. United Earth Defense Fleet. The word sent waves of terror through every Velrin who heard it. Humans were Class 12 Deathworlders, survivors of a planet so violent that living there made them dangerous. The galaxy had quarantined them centuries ago, keeping them locked in their own star system. They were not supposed to have faster-than-light travel. They were not supposed to be here. Stories about Earth painted it as a nightmare world, a planet where weather could kill, where microscopic organisms waged constant war, where predators hunted in packs and prey evolved weapons of their own, where even the plants could be poisonous. Humans evolved in hell, and it showed in everything they built. The lead ship opened communications. The voice that came through spoke in harsh, angular sounds before the translator engaged. A human appeared on the screen, his face marked with scars and his eyes hard. He wore a dark uniform and his expression gave away nothing. "This is Captain Tae-hyun of the United Earth Defense Fleet," he said. The translator rendered his words into Galactic Common, but traces of his native Korean still echoed beneath. "We received a distress signal from this system. We read hostile forces in the area." "Say again, we read hostiles in your system." "We are here to help." Velthus struggled to find words. Their translator picked up the trembling patterns on their skin and converted them to speech. You are human. You are quarantined. How did you—" "The galaxy kept us locked away," Tae-hyun said. His tone was flat, professional. "That didn't stop us from building what we needed. Someone sent a distress beacon," we answered. "Are you in danger or not?" Another Velrin pushed forward, patterns flashing with desperate fear. "You must leave. You do not understand what you face. The Cravathi swarm has consumed 17 civilizations. They are endless. Your primitive weapons cannot—" Tae-hyun held up one hand. "Let me worry about our weapons. How many hostiles? What class?" 70 ships, Velthus whispered, "including 3 heavy cruisers. They will return within hours. They always return. Captain, you should flee while you can. Take your people and go. We are already dead." The human studied them through the screen. Something flickered in his eyes, an emotion the translator could not read. When he spoke again, his voice had changed slightly. Softer but somehow more frightening. "We came a long way to answer your call. We're not leaving." He turned away from the screen. Velthus could see other humans moving behind him, working at stations filled with displays and controls the Velrin did not recognize. One young human, barely more than a child by their appearance, worked at a tactical console. An older human with gray in her hair studied what looked like star charts. They all moved with the same controlled efficiency, like predators working together. "All ships," Taehyun said, his voice carrying through the fleet. "Battle formation Sigma 9. Spin up weapon systems. Prepare for hostile engagement. Intelligence says 70 ships incoming. We will demonstrate why humanity does not abandon those who need help." Velthus watched in disbelief as the human fleet shifted positions. They moved between the Velrin stations and the direction the Cravathi would arrive from. They were not running. They were not hiding. They were preparing to fight a battle they could not win against an enemy they did not understand. "Captain," Velthus said, their voice breaking. Why would you do this?" "Your species owes us nothing. The galaxy imprisoned you. We never spoke against your quarantine. We let you suffer alone. Why would you risk everything for strangers?" Taehyun looked back at the screen. For a moment his hard expression softened. "Because we know what it's like when nobody comes. Earth taught us many things, Elder Velthus. It taught us to be strong. It taught us to survive. But most importantly, it taught us that when someone needs help, you give it. Because someday it might be you who needs saving." The communication cut off. The human ships held their positions, waiting. Inside their stations, the Velrin could only watch and wonder if they had called saviors, or simply different monsters. Either way, the choice was made. The Deathworlders had come and the swarm was approaching. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity meant by help. The Cravathi arrived like a plague of locusts, their ships blotting out the stars. 70 vessels, each one massive and organic-looking, covered in chitinous armor that seemed to pulse with life. They moved in perfect coordination, a hive mind directing every action. No individual thought, no hesitation, just the collective will of the swarm. On the Velrin stations, alarms screamed. Civilians pressed against viewing ports, their bioluminescence flashing in patterns of pure terror. They had seen this before. They knew what came next. The Cravathi would surround them, cut off escape routes, and then methodically destroy every habitat until nothing remained but wreckage and bodies. Elder Velthus stood frozen in the command center. 3 generations of Velrin had died to the swarm. There was no defense. There was no hope. There was only the waiting for the end. The Cravathi Queen Mind broadcast across all frequencies, her voice like insects crawling over dead flesh. "Prey species detected. Deathworlder interference noted. You will die like all others. The swarm is eternal. The swarm consumes all." Captain Taehyun's response was calm, almost bored. "Indomitable will to all ships. Target packages are assigned. Weapons free on my mark. Let's show them how Earth says hello." The human fleet moved. It was not like anything the Velrin had ever witnessed. The ships did not flee. They did not try to negotiate. They attacked with a speed and ferocity that defied understanding. The formation split into 3 groups, each one moving to flank the Cravathi force from different angles. Commander Bora led the fighter wings out first. 60 small craft, each one piloted by a single human, streaked toward the swarm like missiles. The Velrin expected them to be crushed immediately. Instead, the fighters danced through Cravathi point defense fire, their movements almost impossible to predict. They dodged and weaved and rolled, using maneuvers that would kill most species from the G-forces alone. Bora's voice came through on the tactical channel, speaking rapid Korean before the translator caught up. "Wing Alpha, target their coordination nodes. Wing Beta, take out those shield generators. Wing Gamma, stay on my tail and watch for their fighters." The human pilots responded with sharp acknowledgments. They worked together with practiced ease, covering each other's approaches, coordinating attacks without needing detailed orders. They had done this before many times, just not against aliens. The fighters released their weapons. Kinetic kill missiles, small but devastatingly fast, slammed into Cravathi command ships. The missiles carried no explosives. They did not need them. At the speeds they traveled, simple mass was enough. The impacts punched through alien armor like it was paper. 2 Cravathi cruisers went dark, their coordination systems destroyed. The smaller ships near them began moving erratically, cut off from the hive mind's direct control. Lieutenant Daewon watched from his console. Aboard the Indomitable Will, his, young face was tight with concentration as he tracked enemy movements and analyzed their patterns. Captain, I'm detecting command lag in sectors 4 and 7. Their hive network uses a central hub system. If we take out the Queen Mine ship, the whole fleet loses cohesion. Can you identify it? Taehyun asked. Daewon's fingers flew across his controls. Yes, sir. Largest vessel, center of formation. Heavy armor, but I'm reading power fluctuations. Their shield has a weakness at the aft section. Taehyun allowed himself a small smile. All heavy units form up on the Indomitable Will. We're going straight down their throat. Target the Queen Mine ship. Prepare railgun batteries for synchronized fire. 6 human dreadnoughts moved into formation, their massive forms dwarfing everything else in the battle. The Kravathi tried to intercept them, but human destroyers and frigates ran interference, their point defense systems creating walls of fire that the swarm could not easily penetrate. The Velryn watched in stunned silence. This was warfare on a scale they had never imagined. Not elegant duels between ships, not strategic positioning. This was brutal, efficient violence. The humans fought like they were born to it because they were. The Indomitable Will shook as its railguns fired. Magnetic accelerators pushed tungsten rounds to 3% light speed. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds, slamming into the Queen Mine's weakened shields with the force of small nuclear weapons. The other dreadnoughts fired in sequence, their shots timed to hit within microseconds of each other. The Kravathi shields flickered, overloaded, and failed. The final salvo punched straight through the ship's organic armor and into its core systems. The Queen Mine's scream echoed across every frequency. Then it cut off abruptly as her ship went dark. The effect on the swarm was immediate and catastrophic. Without the Queen Mine's coordination, the Kravathi ships began acting independently. Some continued attacking. Others tried to flee. Several collided with each other, their individual pilots lacking the coordination they had relied on for centuries. Commander Bo-Ra pressed the advantage. All wings, they're scattered. Hit them while they're confused. Don't give them time to regroup. The human fleet tore through the disorganized swarm like wolves through sheep. Railguns fired until their barrels glowed red. Missile batteries launched salvo after salvo. Laser arrays carved through alien hulls with surgical precision. Chief Engineer Ji-Woo worked frantically in the engine rooms, managing power distribution and keeping weapon systems online. Her hands, scarred from years of repairs, moved with practiced skill across control panels. She routed power from non-essential systems, pushed engines beyond their rated capacity, and kept everything running through force of will and experience. A Kravathi battleship tried to ram the Indomitable Will in a final desperate move. Captain Taehyun watched it approach on his display, calculated vectors in his head, and gave a single order. Emergency burn starboard thrusters. Show them our broadside. The dreadnought rotated on its axis. As the Kravathi ship passed by, every weapon on the Indomitable Will's right side fired at point-blank range. The alien vessel disintegrated, torn apart by the concentrated barrage. The battle lasted 23 minutes from first contact to last shot. When it ended, 68 Kravathi ships were destroyed. 2 escaped into deeper space, running for their lives. The human fleet had suffered damage, 3 fighters lost, 2 destroyers needing repairs, but they held the field. Captain Taehyun took a deep breath and opened communications to the Velryn stations. His face appeared on their screens, and for the first time, the Velryn saw emotion in his expression. Satisfaction, pride, the look of someone who had done their job well. Hostile threat neutralized. He reported, "The swarm is broken. Your system is secure. We have medical teams ready to deploy if you have wounded. Do you require assistance?" Elder Velthus could not speak. Their bioluminescence cycled through colors that had no translation, emotions too complex for words. Around them, other Velryn touched the displays as if they could not believe what they had seen. The Kravathi swarm, terror of the sector for 3 generations, defeater of 17 civilizations, was destroyed in 23 minutes. By species, the galaxy had locked away out of fear. A young Velryn technician finally found their voice. How did you do that?" Taehyun's expression softened slightly. "We learned to fight on a world that tried to kill us every day. We spent thousands of years fighting each other before we learned to work together. We built weapons because we had to, and we got very good at it. The swarm was dangerous, but they were predictable. They relied on their hive mind, made them vulnerable to disruption. He paused, then added, "We're not monsters, Elder Velthus. We're just very good at protecting people who need it. Now may we come aboard? Some of your people are hurt and our doctors can help." Velthus looked at the human ships, these vessels that had seemed so frightening. They still looked dangerous. They still looked like weapons. But perhaps that was the point. Perhaps the galaxy needed weapons sometimes. Perhaps it needed people willing to use them in defense of others. "Yes," Velthus said softly. "Yes, please. Come help us." The Deathworlders had proven themselves. Now came the harder part, learning to trust them. The human medical teams arrived in dropships that looked more like assault craft than ambulances. They were built for speed and armor, designed to land in hostile territory. The Velrin watched nervously as the ships docked with their damaged stations. Corporal Sung Ho was the first through the airlock. He stood nearly 2 meters tall, his body thick with muscle built from Earth's heavy gravity. He carried medical equipment in a pack that would have crushed most Velrin. His face was kind, though, and when he saw the wounded civilians, his expression softened immediately. "Don't be afraid," he said gently in Korean before his translator caught up. "I'm here to help." The Velrin shrank back from him anyway. His size was terrifying, his strength obvious. Everything about him screamed predator, but he moved slowly, carefully, keeping his hands visible. He knelt beside an injured Velrin child whose patterns flickered weakly with pain. Dr. Insu joined him, her medical scanner already analyzing the child's biology. She was older, her hair showing gray, her movements efficient and precise. She had studied alien physiology for years during Earth's quarantine, learning everything she could from intercepted broadcasts. Now that knowledge proved invaluable. "Malnutrition, dehydration, shock," she said quietly. "Sung Ho, start an IV line with the saline solution. Adjust for their chemistry. I'll stabilize the breathing." Sung Ho's massive hands worked with surprising delicacy. He inserted the IV needle with practiced care, his touch gentle despite his size. He spoke softly to the child in Korean, his voice a low rumble that somehow seemed comforting. The child's patterns began to stabilize, shifting from distress red to cautious yellow. More human medics spread through the station, triaging wounded and setting up field hospitals. Their equipment looked brutal compared to Velrin technology. Everything was built heavy, built to last, built to function in the worst possible conditions. But it worked, and it worked well. Private Yuna moved through the damaged sections with Velrin engineers helping restore power and life support. She was young, barely 20, with quick hands and a brilliant mind for mechanical systems. She studied the Velrin technology with open fascination. "This is beautiful," she said, examining a power distribution node. "So elegant. Everything flows together like art." The Velrin engineer beside her flickered with confusion. "Your technology is different," Yuna laughed. "You mean crude? It's okay, you can say it. We build everything with redundancy. Triple backups. Over-engineered. Because things break on Earth, weather, disasters, attacks. We learn to make systems that keep working even when they shouldn't." She pulled out a human repair tool, something that looked more like a weapon than an instrument. "See this? It's designed to work in vacuum, underwater, in extreme heat or cold. It's not elegant, but it always works. That's the human way." Together, they restored power to a damaged section. Yuna showed the Velrin engineers human techniques for emergency repairs. The Velrin showed her their methods for efficiency and grace. They learned from each other, finding common ground in the shared language of engineering. In the station's observation deck, Ambassador Hyejin met with Elder Velthus. They sat together watching the human fleet maintain patrol patterns, a slow dance of warships keeping watch over the system. Hyejin had brought food, human rations that made the Velrin hesitate. The ambassador smiled and opened one package. "It's not poisonous, I promise, though it probably tastes terrible to you. We make food for function, not flavor." Velthus cautiously sampled a nutrition bar. Their patterns flashed with surprise and then disgust. It tasted like compressed minerals and synthetic proteins. "How do you eat this?" "You get used to it," Yejin said with a laugh. "When your world tries to kill you, you learn to eat whatever keeps you alive. Beauty comes second to survival." They talked for hours. Velthus asked questions they had been afraid to voice. "Why do your people carry weapons everywhere? Even your doctors have guns." Hee-Jin looked down at the sidearm on her belt. Habit mostly. On Earth, danger can come from anywhere. Animals, weather, other humans. We learned to always be ready. It's hard to break that training even in safe places. She paused. Does it frighten you? Yes, Veltis admitted. Everything about you frightens us. Your size, your strength, your weapons, the casual way you speak about violence. Even your food is aggressive. Hee-Jin nodded slowly. I understand. We must seem like monsters to you. The galaxy certainly treats us that way. But you saved us, Veltis said, their patterns shifting to confusion. You risked your lives for strangers. You asked for nothing in return. You are kind to our wounded. How can you be both things? Violent and gentle? Dangerous and helpful? The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. Earth taught us to be hard. We had to be to survive. But hardness isn't the same as cruelty. We learned that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak. That power without compassion is just tyranny. That violence should be a last resort. But when it's necessary, it should be swift and decisive. She looked out at the stars. The galaxy quarantined us because they feared what we might become. They saw our weapons and our wars and decided we were too dangerous. But they never asked why we fight. They never understood that we learned to be warriors so we could choose to be something better. Veltis moved closer, their bioluminescence pulsing with deep thought. Your people have more words for warfare than we have for art. Your music includes military marches. Your sports simulate combat. Everything in your culture touches violence somehow. Yes, Hee-Jin agreed, because we know the cost of it. Every human child learns history. We teach them about our wars, our mistakes, the times we let fear and anger rule us. We remember the worst parts of our past so we don't repeat them. Violence is part of us, but it doesn't control us. Not anymore. Around the station, more humans and Velrin interacted cautiously. In the medical bay, Dr. Insu explained human anatomy to fascinated Velrin healers. The Velrin were shocked by how much damage human bodies could survive. Broken bones, torn muscles, even damaged organs could be repaired. Humans were built to endure. In the engineering sections, Chief Jiwoo worked alongside Velrin technicians, her scarred hands moving with confidence through unfamiliar systems. She spoke little, letting her work communicate for her. The Velrin watched in amazement as she jury-rigged solutions to problems using materials that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Human engineering is chaos, one Velrin engineer said. Not unkindly, Jiwoo grunted. Chaos that works. Sometimes the best solution isn't the elegant one. Sometimes you just need something that won't break when everything else does. In the mess hall, human soldiers shared meals with Velrin civilians. The humans were loud, laughing and joking in ways the Velrin found startling. They told stories about Earth, about families and homes and things they missed. The Velrin listened, fascinated by glimpses of a world so different from their own. One Velrin child, braver than the rest, approached Commander Bora. Is it true your planet has storms that can destroy cities? Bora smiled. True. We call them hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones. Winds faster than spacecraft. Water falling from the sky in amounts that can flood entire regions. We build underground shelters and learn to read the weather like you read star charts. That sounds terrifying, the child said. It is, Bora agreed. But it's also beautiful. After a storm, the air is clean. The sun comes out. Life continues. Earth taught us that destruction and creation are part of the same cycle. That surviving the bad times makes the good times precious. The child's patterns shifted to tentative curiosity. What's it like being human? Bora thought about it carefully. It's being strong because you have to be. It's being scared but doing things anyway. It's knowing you might fail but trying regardless. It's carrying the weight of history and choosing to be better than your ancestors. It's looking at the stars and wanting to explore them, even knowing how dangerous they are. She looked around at the Velrin civilians, their fragile bodies and peaceful nature. Being human means sometimes you have to be the monster so others don't have to be. We fight so species like yours can focus on art and beauty and all the things that make life worth living. That's the trade we make. Elder Velthus joined Ambassador Hee-Jin again as the human shift rotations changed. They watched human crews move with military precision, every action purposeful and efficient. I'm beginning to understand, Velthus said slowly. You are not monsters pretending to be good. You are good people who learn to be monsters when necessary. There is a difference. Hee-Jin smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. That's the kindest thing anyone has said about humanity in a long time. Maybe someday the galaxy will understand that too. They sat together in comfortable silence, human and alien, beginning to build bridges across the vast gulf between their species. It would not be easy. Fear and prejudice did not disappear overnight, but it was a start. Outside, the human fleet kept watch over the Velrin system. Inside the stations, humans and Velrin worked side by side. The Deathworlders had proven they could fight. Now they were proving they could care. Both lessons were important. Both were necessary for what came next. 3 weeks passed in uneasy peace. The human fleet established defensive positions around Velrin 2 while helping repair the damaged stations. Mixed crews of humans and Velrin worked together, still cautious but growing more comfortable. Children no longer fled when human soldiers walked by. Velrin engineers shared workspace with human technicians without fear. Lieutenant HFY spent long hours in the communications center, analyzing data recovered from destroyed Kravathi ships. She was methodical and patient, sorting through corrupted files and encrypted transmissions. Something about the attack patterns bothered her, a nagging sense that pieces were missing. On the 22nd day, she found it. "Captain Tae-hyun, you need to see this." Her voice was tense over the comm system. "Sir, the attack we faced was not their main force. It was a probe, a scouting mission." Tae-hyun arrived at her station within minutes, Ambassador Hee-jin and Elder Velthus close behind. HFY pulled up holographic displays showing Kravathi communication logs. "They were testing us," she explained, her fingers moving through the data, "measuring our response time, weapons capabilities, tactical patterns. All of it was transmitted back to their main fleet before we destroyed the Queen Mind." She paused, her face pale. "Sir, they're coming back. 300 ships, including their mobile hive world. ETA 4 days." The room went silent. Even the ever-present hum of the station's system seemed to quiet. Elder Velthus's bioluminescence cycled through colors of pure despair. 300 ships. That is their full force. The same fleet that destroyed the Sara Prime. No one has ever survived contact with the hive world. Tae-hyun studied the tactical display, his scarred face showing no emotion. "What do we know about this hive world?" "It's massive," HFY said, pulling up what little data existed. 10 kilometers across. Carries the prime queen mind and breeding facilities for the entire swarm. If we don't stop it, they'll establish a permanent foothold in this sector. Ambassador Hee-jin looked at the numbers. "Tae-hyun, we have 73 ships. Against 300, even with our weapons advantage." "I know the math," Tae-hyun said quietly. "Lieutenant Daewon, send a message to Earth Command. Request immediate reinforcements. Everything they can spare." "Yes, sir. Though it will take time." "I know." "Do it anyway." Tae-hyun turned to Elder Velthus. "Begin evacuations. Get your civilians to the farthest stations. Prepare transport ships. If this goes badly, some of your people need to survive." Velthus's patterns flickered with determination. "No, if you fight, we stand with you. My people may not be warriors, but we can help. We know the swarm better than anyone. We have 3 generations of combat data, tactical analyses, everything we've learned from running and hiding. Let us contribute." Tae-hyun studied the elder for a long moment, then nodded. "Lieutenant Daewon, coordinate with Velrin tacticians. I want everything they know about swarm behavior. How they think, how they coordinate, what they've done in previous battles. Find me a weakness we can exploit." The next 4 days were chaos. Admiral Myungdae arrived from Earth with 40 additional ships, pushing his fleet beyond safe limits to reach them in time. The Admiral was old, his face weathered by decades of command, his eyes hard from losses in the Centauri Wars. He trusted few species besides humans, but he trusted Tae-hyun. "You're insane," Myungdae said when he heard the plan. "Hold position against 300 ships?" "We don't have a choice," Tae-hyun replied. "If we run, the swarm establishes a base here. They'll use it to strike deeper into the sector. More species die. Eventually they reach Earth," Myungdae growled but nodded. "Then we dig in and make them pay for every meter." "What's our strategy?" Lieutenant Daewon, working with Velrin analysts, found patterns in the swarm's tactics. "They're predictable, sir. They always use the same formations, the same attack vectors. They rely on overwhelming numbers and hive coordination. If we can disrupt their command structure and force them to fight as individuals, we stand a chance," Tae-hyun finished. "Chief Jiwoo, how are those modifications coming?" In the engineering bays, Jiwoo pushed her crews to the breaking point. They installed experimental weapons, jury-rigged shield boosters, and prepared every nasty surprise human creativity could devise. "We're ready, sir." "It's going to be ugly, but we're ready." Commander Bora trained her pilots until exhaustion became routine. Mixed wings of human and Velrin crews learned to work together. The Velrin couldn't handle the G-forces of combat maneuvers, but their pattern recognition made them brilliant at navigation and sensor work. Human pilots learned to trust their alien navigators. Dr. Insu prepared medical facilities for mass casualties. She did not speak about the numbers, about how many beds they had versus how many they might need. There was no point. Everyone knew the risks. The swarm arrived on schedule, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in a formation that blotted out the stars. 300 ships perfectly coordinated, moving as one massive organism. At the center, the hive world pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, alive and aware and hungry. The Prime Queen Mind's voice echoed across all frequencies, filled with ancient hatred. "Deathworlders, you defeated a fragment of the swarm. You think yourselves powerful. You are nothing. You will be consumed. Your world will be consumed. All worlds become part of the swarm." Captain Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Will, surrounded by his crew, humans and Velrin, working together, preparing for the fight of their lives. He opened fleet-wide communications. "All ships, this is Captain Tae-hyun. 300 enemy vessels are in system. They outnumber us 3-1. They have destroyed 17 civilizations. They think we're prey." He paused, let the words sink in. "They're about to learn what Earth teaches its children. That the predator is never safe. That numbers don't guarantee victory. That humanity does not abandon those who need us." He looked at the tactical display, at the massive swarm formation bearing down on them. "Today we show the galaxy what Deathworlders really are. Not monsters. Not saviors. Just people who refuse to let bullies win. All ships weapons free. Let's go to work." The human fleet launched forward. Not fleeing. Not defensive. Aggressive. Attacking directly into the teeth of overwhelming odds. The swarm, expecting fear, found fury instead. The battle was apocalyptic. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Weapons fired until barrels melted. Shields overloaded and failed and were rerouted. Humans employed every dirty tactic they had learned from centuries of warfare against each other. They used the asteroid field, turning rocks into kinetic weapons with precise nudges. They broadcast false signals, confusing swarm coordination. They targeted specific ships to create cascade failures in the hive network. They sacrificed damaged vessels in ramming attacks that took out 3 or 4 enemy ships at once. Commander Bora led her wings on suicide runs into the heart of the formation. Her fighters danced through defensive fire, their human pilots pushing past limits that should have killed them. Velrin navigators called out threats with perfect accuracy, their enhanced pattern recognition saving lives. "Target those shield generators," Bora ordered in Korean, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Break the hive world's defenses. Make them vulnerable." Her wing dove toward the massive hive world, missiles streaking ahead of them. Point defense systems fired frantically, destroying many missiles but not all. The surviving weapons slammed into shield generators, overloading them one by one. The Indomitable Will coordinated with 6 other dreadnoughts, their captains working together with practiced precision. They timed their railgun volleys to hit within microseconds, concentrating fire on the Prime Queen Mind's ship. "All guns," Tae-hyun said quietly. "Fire." The combined barrage lit up space. Tungsten rounds traveling at 3% light speed punched through weakened shields and into the hive world's organic armor. The Prime Queen Mind screamed, a sound that hurt to hear, but the swarm kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The human fleet was taking heavy damage. Ships reported critical failures, wounded crews, ammunition running low. Lieutenant Daewon watched the tactical display, searching for any advantage. Then he saw it, a pattern in the swarm's movements. "Captain, they're routing all commands through the hive world. If we can sever that connection, do it," Tae-hyun ordered. Daewon's fingers flew across his console, coordinating electronic warfare systems across the fleet. Human ships, their computers faster and more sophisticated, hacked into Kravathi communication networks and injected viruses, jamming signals, corrupting data streams. The effect was immediate. Swarm ships began losing coordination, individual units acting on outdated orders or no orders at all. The perfect formation broke apart into chaos. All ships pressed the attack, Admiral Myungdae's voice boomed across the fleet. They're scattered. Hit them hard. Don't give them time to recover. The human fleet tore into the disorganized swarm with renewed ferocity. Ship after ship fell. The hive world tried to retreat, its massive bulk slowly turning, but it was too slow, too large, too vulnerable. The indomitable will, scarred and bleeding but still fighting, made one final approach. Every remaining weapon fired at point-blank range into the hive world's core. The Prime Queen Mind's scream cut off as her ship ruptured, atmosphere and debris exploding into space. The swarm broke. Ships scattered in all directions. The memorial service was held in the largest observation deck on Velrin 2, a space where humans and Velrin gathered together under the stars. The walls displayed names in 3 languages: Korean, Galactic Common, and the flowing bioluminescent script of the Velrin people. 2,347 names, human and Velrin, killed in the battle against the swarm. Captain Tae-hyun read each name aloud, his voice steady, but weighted with grief. He wore his dress uniform, dark fabric with service ribbons that told stories of previous battles. Around him, human crew members stood at attention, facing forward, eyes dry but hearts heavy. They had lost friends, comrades, people they had served with for years. The Velrin mourned differently. Their bioluminescence pulsed in slow, synchronized waves, colors shifting from blue to purple to deep indigo. It was their way of sharing grief, of letting others see and feel their sorrow. Every Velrin in the station participated, creating a flowing pattern of light that represented their collective loss. Elder Veltis spoke when the names were done. Their voice was soft but carried throughout the chamber. They died for people they had never met, for a species that could not fight back, for a world not their own. This is not the behavior of monsters. This is the behavior of heroes. Ambassador Hee-jin stood beside the elder, her own eyes red from crying. She had known many of the dead personally, had shared meals with them, laughed at their jokes, listened to their stories about homes they would never see again. They gave everything. Hee-jin said quietly. They knew the odds. They knew they might not survive. They fought anyway because that's what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand between the darkness and the light. That is our burden. That is our choice. Dr. Insu worked in the medical bays, treating the wounded who survived. Her hands moved with practiced skill, but her face showed the exhaustion of 17 hours of surgery. Human medics and Velrin healers worked side by side now, teaching each other, combining their knowledge to save lives that might have been lost. Corporal Sung-ho sat beside a human pilot who had lost both legs in the battle. The pilot's name was Kyung-soo, young and optimistic before the battle. Now he stared at the ceiling, his face empty of expression. I can't fly anymore, Kyung-soo said flatly. Can't work the pedals without legs. Sung-ho held his friend's hand. We'll get you prosthetics. Human engineering, remember? We rebuild what gets broken. You'll fly again. Might take time, but you'll fly. Why does it matter? Kyung-soo's voice cracked. What was the point? We saved the Velrin, sure, but the galaxy still hates us. Still fears us. We bled for them and nothing changed. Sung-ho was quiet for a moment. Everything changed. The Velrin see us differently now. Other species are watching. It starts here, with one species learning we're not monsters. Then another. Then another. Change is slow, but it happens. You helped make that possible. Meanwhile, Private Yuna made a discovery that would reshape everything they knew about the swarm. She was sorting through wreckage recovered from the hive world, looking for salvageable technology, when she found something unexpected. Data cores ancient and damaged but readable. She brought them to Lieutenant Jaehua. Together they spent hours decrypting the files. What they found was disturbing. The Krivati had not always been a hive mind. They were once individuals, a peaceful species of insect-like beings who lived in harmony with their world. Then came a war with another species, a conflict over resources that spiraled out of control. The Krivati created a biological weapon, something to unite their people and make them stronger, a virus that linked minds together, allowing perfect coordination and communication. They thought it would help them win the war. Instead, it consumed them, transforming every Krivati into part of a collective consciousness that knew only hunger and expansion. The weapon destroyed its creators, turning them into the very thing the galaxy feared. And for 3 generations, that weapon had consumed 17 civilizations before humanity stopped it. Yuna brought the data to Captain Taehyun and Admiral Myung-dae. They read the files in silence, faces growing more troubled with each revelation. They made themselves into weapons, Myung-dae said quietly, and those weapons consumed them. Dr. Insu joined the meeting, reading the biological data. The virus is still in their system. Every Kravathi still alive carries it. They can't go back to being individuals. The transformation is permanent. Taehyun stared at the data for a long time. We could have been them. If our worst impulses had won, if we had let fear override conscience during the genetic wars or the nuclear age, we could have destroyed ourselves the same way. The weight of that realization hung heavy in the room. Humanity had come close to extinction several times in its history. War, plague, climate disaster, all threats that nearly ended their species. They survived by choosing to be better, to learn from mistakes, to cooperate instead of compete. This is why the galaxy fears us, Hyojin said softly. Not because of what we are, but because of what we could become. They see our weapons, our aggression, our capacity for violence, and they imagine us turning into something like the swarm. Then we prove them wrong, Taehyun said firmly. Every day, in every action, we show them that power and conscience can coexist. That strength does not require cruelty. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. Within days, 73 civilizations sent messages to the human fleet. The responses varied wildly. Some offered gratitude for defeating the swarm. Some expressed fear at humanity's military capability. Some proposed trade agreements or defensive alliances. But the Galactic Council could no longer ignore Earth's presence. They sent a formal summons. Admiral Myung-dae and Ambassador Hyojin were to appear before the Council to answer questions about humanity's actions and intentions. The journey to the Council chambers took 3 days. Admiral Myung-dae spent the time preparing, reviewing every detail of the battle, anticipating every question they might face. He was not optimistic about the outcome. They're looking for an excuse to reimpose quarantine, he said to Hyojin. We proved we're dangerous. That's all they'll see. Then we make them see more than that, Hyojin replied. We make them see why we fought. We make them understand that danger is not the same as evil. The council chambers were massive, a circular room with delegates from hundreds of species arranged in tiers. The architecture was designed to intimidate, to make individuals feel small before the collective weight of galactic civilization. Humans, being humans, refused to be impressed. Admiral Myung-dae and Ambassador Hyojin stood in the center, surrounded by alien delegates who watched them with expressions ranging from fear to curiosity to outright hostility. The council speaker, a being of light and crystalline structure, addressed them formally. Humanity of Earth, you violated your quarantine. You entered restricted space. You engaged in military action without council approval. These are serious violations of galactic law. We answered a distress call, Myung-dae replied, his voice steady and unapologetic. A species facing extinction asked for help. We provided it. What law forbids that? The law that quarantined your species for the safety of the galaxy, another delegate said, their voice sharp. You are Class 12 Deathworlders. Your capacity for violence is documented. You should never have been allowed to develop faster than light travel. Before Myung-dae could respond, Elder Veltis's hologram appeared in the chamber. The council speaker tried to interrupt, but Veltis spoke over them, their bioluminescence pulsing with intense emotion. You speak of safety, Veltis said, their voice carrying across the chamber. Where was the council's concern for safety when my people faced extinction? For 3 generations we sent distress calls. We begged for help. No one came. No one risked themselves for a species facing genocide. The chamber went silent. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Veltis continued, their patterns flashing with intensity. The humans came. They fought, they bled. 2,347 humans died defending my world. They asked for nothing in return. They expected no gratitude. They did what was right because it was right. You call them Deathworlders as an insult. I call them that as a compliment. Death taught them the value of life. Hardship taught them compassion. Violence taught them when to choose peace. You fear what they might do with their power. I fear what the galaxy becomes if we do not learn from them. The Velrin elder's words echoed through the chamber. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Ambassador Hyajin added her voice. Earth spent 2 centuries quarantined, watching the galaxy from afar. You feared us, so we feared you. But isolation taught us something important. Fear breeds ignorance, and ignorance breeds conflict. She looked around at the assembled delegates. We came to Velrin 2 not to prove ourselves, not to gain political favor. We came because it was the right thing to do. Judge us by our actions, not your assumptions about what we might do. The council deliberated for hours. The vote was close, arguments heated, divisions sharp. Some species wanted humanity restricted to their home system indefinitely. Others saw the Val